Hi Flosstube, this is Stephanie, the IvyHouseCrafter. This is my 5th time restarting and trying to film this video. Hopefully this is the one that actually sticks. I am relearning about myself, something that I already knew, and that is words don't come easily to me, and it's hard to express what I'm trying to express. I'm not very good at it. But I'm gonna give it a try. This is a channel about cross stitch, and normally I try to just jump right in and get to the fun cross stitch goodness. I'm gonna, instead of that, this time start with talking a bit about current events, the things that are going on in the world, and especially here in America right now. Bless you, Isis. My cat just sneezed. That happened in video 3, I think. Video attempt 3. So for the past week, you know, everything has been in a state of great unrest, and everything was catalyzed by the death of George Floyd, because of the inappropriate use of force and restraint by the police. And because I'm just so bad with words, I'm gonna get going on this by reading a statement that was put out on the 1st, June 1st, by Russell M. Nelson. And for those who don't know who that is, he is the president of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and I'm a member of that church. And so I'm going to read his statement, and I know that not everything that he says is 100% what everybody wants to hear, but it kind of sums up my feelings about things. And so I'm going to kind of start with that. Hello, sweet cat. Please do not be on my cross stitch. Sorry. We join with many throughout this nation and around the world who are deeply saddened at recent events, at recent evidences of racism and a blatant disregard for human life. We abhor the reality that some would deny others respect and the most basic of freedoms because of the color of his or her skin. We are also saddened when these assaults on human dignity lead to escalating violence and unrest. The Creator of us all calls on each of us to abandon attitudes of prejudice against any group of God's children. Any of us who has prejudice toward another race needs to repent. During the Savior's earthly mission, he constantly ministered to those who were excluded, marginalized, judged, overlooked, abused, and discounted. As his followers, can we do anything less? The answer is no. We believe in freedom, kindness, and fairness for all of God's children. Let us be clear, we are brothers and sisters, each of us the child of a loving Father in heaven. His Son, the Lord Jesus Christ, invites all to come unto him, black and white, bond and free, male and female. It behooves each of us to do whatever we can in our spheres of influence to preserve the dignity and respect every son and daughter of God deserves. Any nation can only be as great as its people. That requires citizens to cultivate a moral compass that helps them distinguish between right and wrong. Illegal acts such as looting, defacing, and destroying public or private property cannot be tolerated. Never has one wrong been corrected by a second wrong. Evil has never been resolved by more evil. We need to foster our faith in the fatherhood of God and the brotherhood of man. We need to foster a fundamental respect for the human dignity of every human soul, regardless of their color, creed, or cause. And we need to work tirelessly to build bridges of understanding rather than creating walls of segregation. I plead with us to work together for peace, for mutual respect, and for an outpouring of love for all of God's children. He's way better with words than I am. For me personally, this week has been one of really looking inside myself and seeing what is there that needs to change. I started out, and I recognize this now, I started out very close-minded, and I had my own opinion and no amount of posts on Facebook and Instagram, no amount of people protesting was going to alter the way I thought about myself and this country and the way things are. And that has changed, and I hope will continue to change, because I have been recognizing in myself attitudes and biases and prejudices that are wrong. I was one of those who, when confronted with the words Black Lives Matter, my immediate response was, all lives matter. Of course, duh. And I had to Google what's so offensive about about all lives matter, because I honestly couldn't understand why is it such a big deal. And I am beginning to understand now and see. I am sorry that it's hard for me to express, and I have long pauses where I'm thinking and trying to get the words out. I know it's hard to listen to me sometimes. But, you know, just looking at the comparisons, it's like when there's a firefighter and a row of houses, and one house is burning, and just because the firefighter is aiming the hose at the house that is burning, that doesn't mean that saying that house needs attention. I mean, it doesn't mean that you're saying none of the other houses matter. And, you know, the person who is helping someone who's fallen down and broken their leg, you know, oh, your leg's broken, and says to somebody, go get help. And the person standing there says, well, what about my leg? You know, so I'm recognizing and trying to learn and understand that when someone says Black Lives Matter, they're not saying nobody else is important, nobody else's lives matter, everything is about Black lives. That's not what it means. And that responding with, well, yes, of course, all lives matter, is hurtful and marginalizes what people are trying to say. We're trying to say Black lives matter as much as everybody else, so give them that. Give that dignity and that ability to just live without fear of prejudice and hatred and abuse simply because of your skin color. Give to Black lives what everybody else, you know, what us white people, we already have. So, yeah, for me this week has been, well, for one thing, terrible on my mental health. My anxiety and depression have been through the roof, and it's been a very hard and uncomfortable week for me, which, when confronted with the with what I have been blind to before. It should be uncomfortable. It should be hard. I don't like it. I do not like being uncomfortable, but right now I should be. And I am trying. I'm acknowledging in myself the attitudes and biases and prejudices, like I've said, that have no place. They don't belong. Attitudes that are just completely wrong, that I never even thought to question before. And I'm questioning now, and I'm acknowledging, and I'm trying to change, trying to educate myself and be a better person. And that's all I have to say. I know I'm not succinct. I'm not good with words, and I know that like I said, for some people it's not enough. And for some people it's too much, and for some people it's not the right thing to say. And I understand that I may end up with thumbs down and unfollow, unsubscribe, and that's the price for having any sort of platform at all at this time. Is you have to express what is going on and your own stance on matters, because being quiet isn't enough. I'm so sorry that I just can't express very well. And I'm so tempted to just turn this off and start all over again with attempt number 6, but I'm just going to leave it at that. And just know that I'm trying. And with that, I'm going to move to the cross stitch, because that's what my channel is about. Okay. This has been a month-ish, however long it's been, since the last video. I got an FO and an FFO and a whip and a new start. Hello, cat. We'll just go in that order. Here's my FFO. This is Roses on White Chair. This is a Dimensions kit, and it was my oldest whip. I started it over 2 years ago when I first picked up cross-stitching again. And this is the lovely frame that my husband and I chose, and he gave it to me for Mother's Day. And yeah, I think that it suits really well. The colors go nicely. I put it in myself after washing and ironing the piece. The pattern said that it would fit an 11 by 14 frame, and this is an 11 by 14 frame, and the edges don't quite line up. It's pretty much it's a great fit on the top and bottom, but the sides don't line up, and because of the way I put it in, it's a little bit further to one side than the other, and so there's uneven amounts of blank fabric showing on either side. I'm okay with it. It is what it is. And yeah, this hangs over my mantle, and it's just really pretty, and I'm really excited to have some of my cross stitch hanging on the walls finally. I've been stitching for 2 years, and this is the first piece that I've actually put on the wall. I have a small cushion that I keep with some biscornus that were given to me or swapped during words. Come on. I'm part of the Great Biscornu Swap on Facebook, and some of those biscornus I keep on a bowl on the piano, along with one pillow that I made. And I have one framed piece that I made for Jeff, and that's sitting on the mantle. So this is the first piece that I framed and put on the wall. There we go. It shouldn't be so hard to just say stuff. Okay, my FO, my finished object. This is Carriage House Samplings, Mr. and Mrs. Abbott and Daughters. And for those who watched my previous video or follow me on Instagram, I stitched them side by side so that they're facing each other. And here is my finish. This is stitched 2/2 on 28 count Monaco, and it's just a part of a very large piece of Monaco that I had in my stash, and I've kind of cut chunks off for various projects. And this is the last big piece that I had, and there's like a tiny little bit left for really tiny 1/1 ornament type things that I might do, but this finished off that fabric. Anyway, I just love how this turned out. It was a really quick stitch. I did make a handful of small changes. Her arm I made a little bit shorter. His face I changed a little bit so that he didn't look like he was looking down and had a tiny, like, weak chin. And I shaved a column off of his belly because he had a bit of a pot belly in the original pattern, and I didn't love that. So in putting the pieces together, I added about 6 rows, I think, in here, just so that it wasn't an abrupt change between the two patterns, because they didn't line up exactly with the clouds and the ground. This slope here is part of what I had to adjust. So anyway, yeah, this is Mr. and Mrs. Abbott and Daughters Carriage House Samplings. And the what's it called? Enablement from that piece came from Michelle Rudy Farm Girl here on YouTube. No, actually it was Instagram. She had posted on Instagram that this was a piece that she did for Mania last year, and she had stitched them together, and I was like, well, I have to buy the pattern now because it reminds me of Jane Austen. Okay. I then got out, I grabbed the wrong paper. Oh well. This is one that I hadn't gotten out in a long time, but I didn't grab the right paper, the paper that shows what the pattern looks like, but that's okay because it was a really bad printing job, and it looked not great. The colors weren't good. So this is Dolphin Sketch, and it's a drawing that I did in high school and have kept all these years, and I scanned the picture in and then put it on Pick-to-Pat, the Pick-to-Pat website, so it changed it into a cross-stitch pattern. If I had all that to do over again, I would have changed things around a bit, increased the size and increased the number of colors, and it would look better, but I've already got 2.5 pages, and I'm not gonna like restart it because that's a lot of work. So I'll just accept it as a learning opportunity that will still, I mean, it's not bad. It's just, it's not as good as it could be. Anyway, let's see it. So here is the Dolphin Sketch. I had up to here on this page, and so I've added all of this and much of this dolphin's back here. I probably would have had a page finish on this because I was really on a roll. For May, I did a finish mania, and so I finished several of my projects. This one was this was my last finish for Mania, and actually the Roses on White Chair was my first finish for Mania. Anyway, so I was hoping that my last finish for Mania would be a page finish on Dolphin Sketch, but I ended up running out of one of my colors. Please stay downstairs. It's the toddler, the one that doesn't obey. Hello. Okay, sorry about that. I learned a few videos back that it's not a good idea to have my toddler wandering around while I'm trying to film. So anyway, Dolphin Sketch almost had a page finish, but I ran out of one of the colors because turns out I used it all up on Mr. and Mrs. Abbott. So I lost my momentum because I had to set the piece aside until I could replenish my supply of that particular color, and I just never really got that momentum back. As it is, I got some good progress, and it's coming along. But then, let's see, after that, I didn't pick it up again. This last piece that I've been working on, I've been debating whether to show it or not, because it's a new design that I have done. It's actually one that I designed quite a while ago, and I didn't have the floss and fabric to stitch it. And I wanted to wait until I had it stitched up before I put it in my Etsy shop. And because unlike all of my other patterns, I wanted it to be done in fancy floss. So like Gentle Arts and Weeks, Dye Works, Classic Color Works, things like that. So I have finally chosen the colors for that and started stitching, and I still right now don't know if I'm going to show it or not. I'm not a professional pattern designer. I'm not Carriage House Samplings. I'm not Brenda Gervais or Beth Twist, you know. I don't do things the right way. So, you know, I'm going to go ahead and show it, even though it's not finished and it's not listed yet. Sort of a, this is what you have to look forward to coming to my shop soon, but it's not really a sneak peek because I'm just going to show it to you. Anyway, it will be available once I have it completed stitching and get pictures taken of it. There. Okay. It's called The Desire to Create. And I came across this quote a while back and I just loved it. The desire to create is one of the deepest yearnings of the human soul. It resonated with me. I have always wanted to create, whether it's through music or art or cooking, to start with raw materials and turn it into something that didn't exist before but that does now and is beautiful. It is an amazing thing. And so this is the desire to create. And here is what I have so far. It's probably, like, you probably aren't getting the full effect of the variegation. The words are the most variegated, and they're just, oh, it's so pretty. But in real life, it looks more variegated, and the colors are just really pretty. So this is what I have so far. And this one, it should stitch up pretty quickly because, as you can see, it's mostly blank space. Just, there are some things that will take more time, like these bits here. I'm stitching it on 40 count linen, 1/2. So it's actually a lot of stitches. They're just kind of all spread out all over the place. So it's going to be about that big. Anyway, I'm pleased with how it is turning out, and eager to finish it, because I have been sitting on this pattern because I love it so much that I wanted to get it right. So I'm happy that I have finally started stitching it. A little bit of purchases. I made, I have 2 pattern purchases that I wanted to show. The first was because I got some floss from 123 Stitch and didn't want it to travel all by its lonesome. So I needed to get a pattern, obviously, and this is the Nebby needle. It's called Frogs in Your Underpants. And I just really liked it. It's cute. It's got like it looks like really prim and very samplerish. And you read it and you're like, oh, that's nice, and then you get to the end. So, may the light always find you on a dreary day. When you need a home, may you find your way. May you always have courage to take a chance and never find frogs in your underpants. I just thought that was really fun. So, the Nebby needle, frogs in your underpants, gonna happen at some point. And the other pattern that I purchased is from, where did it go? There we go. From Tilton Crafts. I'm going to have to stand up because this is on my phone, and I show it best if I can see on the other side of the camera to make sure that it's showing okay. So this is called Antiques 1. And it is so pretty. So it's kind of a steampunk bird with flowers and feathers, and I think it's so gorgeous. There's 2 full pages of colors of DMC flosses called for. And it's not a small piece. I mean, it's not huge. It's no Hade, but 250 by 300 is the stitch count. So it's a pretty decent sized full coverage piece. I think that I'm not going to stitch the white background In the pattern, all of that white background, that is all stitched, but I think what I'm going to do is put it on some pretty fabric. Not like wild, crazy fabric, but I'll put it on really pretty fabric. And then I'm not going to stitch the background because it calls for like 1 skein of each of the other colors and 10 skeins of white to be stitched on 25 count fabric. So I'm like, no, I think I'll skip all those stitches and just put it on a really pretty fabric. Okay. So all that's left is a little bit of life update things. You know, all the stuff that seemed so important and wonderful and noteworthy before this last week happened, but I'd like to mention anyway. As I mentioned, I've been doing some like cross-stitch designing and stuff. Did I mention? I don't know. I am working on some new patterns, not just the desire to create. That's actually an old pattern that I'm finally working, you know, that I'm finally stitching, but I have been opening up my pattern software and actually creating some new patterns. So that's kind of fun. Those will eventually end up in my Etsy shop. For Memorial Day, we drove up to Idaho and visited my sister and her family, and it was a really nice visit. We, like everyone in my family and everyone in her family, have been symptom-free, and we, you know, always take precautions when we're going out, wearing masks and washing hands and stuff like that. We both felt comfortable enough with visiting with each other that we went ahead and had that visit. And it was nice to get out of the house and see somebody besides my immediate family. While we were there, my sister's father-in-law passed away. They lived very close to each other. So my sister's family lives very close to her husband's parents. Like a 5-minute drive, if that. And so Michelle, that's my sister, Michelle and her husband and her boys were kind of back and forth between households the whole time. He was sick. He had cancer for a while, and he had been, he ended up getting a really bad infection, and the doctors basically sent him home and said, you've got 1 to 2 days. Well, they gave him the option to stay in the ICU or to go home and you know, pass away on his own. And he was like, I'm not dying in the hospital, send me home. So they gave him 1 to 2 days, and he ended up with 3 weeks. And so that was 3 weeks that they didn't think that they would have of being with his family, and so that was a nice blessing for them. But yeah, he passed away while we were there visiting, and my sister expressed that she was really glad that we were there at that time, because we were there to help with meals, and she's very much a people person, and so when she would come home at night and her husband would still be with his parents and her boys would be asleep, she had somebody there to be with. And so I'm glad that we were there to help in what way we could at that time. Oh, let's see. Any other... I had a list. I try to keep a list of the noteworthy things as they happen, and I'm trying to remember what the list was because I don't have it with me. Because obviously, why would I keep the lists that I keep specifically for my Flosstube videos? Why would I have that with me when I'm filming my Flosstube, you know? Wind chimes. Yes, my wind chimes that you can often hear in my videos. It was a old set of wind chimes that were hanging out by the back door of this house since before we bought the house, probably several years before we bought the house, and we've lived here for 10 years. I've had to reattach pipes to the wind chime several times, and finally we had some really strong wind, and the chimes just broke. It fell, it died, and so I ordered new wind chimes, and those have come, and I put a little video on my Instagram of my wind chimes singing to me, and so I need the music of wind chimes. I have to have wind chimes. It's not, it feels empty without them, you know. Anyway, so I got my new wind chimes, and I believe that is I think that's everything that I have. I'm sorry that this was muddled and not super well organized. I always think to myself, okay, I'm going to plan out exactly what I'm going to say, and I'm going to do so much better, and then I just sit down and wing it, and bleh. So for those who consistently stick with me and continue to watch and enjoy my videos in spite of my imperfections, thank you, and happy stitching, everybody.